Welcome to Tanya Outside In. We are holding in Perek Test, chapter 9. It's the third class in this chapter. Um, and the Rebbe gets a little poetic now. Um, we've we're basically putting the pieces of the puzzle together now, and the Rebbe's explaining to us how the Nefesh Bahamis, the mortal soul that's scared stiff of death, and the Nefesh Elokis, the godly soul that doesn't even know what death is, how they interact with each other, where they live, how they react to the body, or how the body reacts to them. And we spoke last week about the different levels of bittul. We spoke about the three levels of bittul, about a mashal that I one of my favorite things to learn in Tanya is the different levels of bittul that we compared to. There's the bittul of the brain, then there's the bittul of the internal organs, then there's the bittul of the limbs, um, and the objective of each king, i.e., the Nefesh of Bahamis and the Nefesh of Kis, is to completely dominate the body. The body is called the small city, and the Rebbe describes it like a small city with two kings uh, warring against each other to take control of the city. That's like the body and the two souls, and the souls need complete dominion. Neither soul will be happy with some kind of deal, but it's for different reasons. And this is how I understood it. The reasons are like this: that the Nefesh Bahamis is egotistical, so he can't entertain the idea of sharing the Malucha, the kingship, with the Nefesh Lakis because it's all about me. The Nefesh Lakis, on the other hand, wouldn't care about giving up giving up some of the body to the Nefesh Bahamis. It's not compatible. The Nefesh Lakis knows deeply that the Nefesh Bahamis is not compatible with her agenda, meaning with God's agenda, because the Nefesh Bahamis has his own agenda. He can only have his own agenda. You can you can train him, you can educate him, the Nefesh Bahamis, like you can an animal, but it will always be its agenda. And this is what it means holy.
You saying that the Nefesh Elokis knows the Nefesh Bahamis can't budge at all?
The Nefesh Keys can't give up any of the body to the Nefesh Bahamis because it's not compatible with the Nefesh Keys, because the Nefesh Bahamis is going to be doing has got its own agenda to survive. So the Nefesh Keys, its agenda is the opposite of survival. Its agenda is to serve God, which is well, it's not really the opposite of survival, but it doesn't care about its survival. It's just there to serve. So the Nefesh Bahamis, he's not there to serve whatsoever. In fact, the word serve to the Nefesh Bahamis is very distasteful. It's revolting. That idea, like you've heard, like you said, mentioned to people, the idea of service. And you'll see, like a lot of people kind of recoil at the idea, at the word itself. But we're Jewish, and Yidden, we long to serve. That's what we want. That's really all we want to do. We just want to serve. When I went to Mexico, where I met Yoel, how I got involved in the whole community in LA. We were in Mexico in Tulum, and there were lots of like Mexicans there helping like around the retreat, and they kept saying, "We're here to serve. We're here to serve," and it made such an imprint on me. It was just so special to hear people, people genuinely wanting to serve. And that's what Moshe was. Moshe was a servant to the people. The higher we are, like that's the Indian of a shamesh, the 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 highest candle by by Hanukkah is the Shamash, yeah? And what does he do? He just lights all the other candles. The bigger you are, the more achrayas for everybody else you have. It's like the sun. The sun is the ultimate mishamish. The sun doesn't get anything from us. He just gives to us all day long. All day long. He gives us the whole day. That's Kedusha. That really is Kedusha. Kedusha's not getting up early in the morning. It's not getting a couple of hours sleep. It's not screaming in Yom Kippur for 5 hours for an esrei. It's not crying and sobbing over the base of Mikdash. It's not learning for hours and hours B'rit Cephas. It's not giving huge amounts of tzedakah. It's none of that. It probably will look, a man who is holy will probably be living a life like that, but that is not holy. The reason the man who is holy is a man who has zero agenda of his own, absolutely zero agenda of his own, and therefore he is serving, and like I said, that could look many different ways, and like I said, it probably will end up looking quite intense and quite impressive. That's probably true, but that's not what makes him holy. That's an expression of his holiness. The holiness is the fact that he has no agenda, no personal agenda whatsoever. I mean, it says that in the end of days, the Gemara says that Hashem will, Midrash, I think, Hashem will reveal his light and it will burn up the Rishayim and it will heal the Tzaddikim. The very same light that heals the Tzaddikim is going to obliterate the Rishayim. How can that be? Either the light is a healing light or it's a destructive light. How can it be that for the Rishoyim it's going to obliterate them and for the Tzaddikim it's going to heal them? So I think it's like this, that the Tzaddikim, the definition of the Tzaddik means I'm 95% for you, Hashem. Meaning my agenda, my own personal agenda is only 5% of me. The illusion or the delusion of this world that I have some kind of independent relevance, yeah, that's only 5% of my life. The 95% of my life is agendaless. I'm here for you, Ribono Shel Olam. That's the tzaddik, yeah? The Rasha, on the other hand, he's 95% here for himself and maybe 5% here for the Ribono Shel Olam, meaning his delusional illusion of reality makes up 95% of who he is. Now, when Hashem reveals himself to us and he reveals his light to us, and we realize that illusion is exactly that, it's a delusion, by the tzaddikim who are only living a 5% illusion, yeah, that light will burn that little 5% away, and that's called healing. When you remove 5% of something that's bad, yeah, the guy's healed. But if the guy's 95% illusion and delusion, when Hashem reveals his light and that's what's burned away, that's called obliteration. That's destruction. You got that? So our goal is to constantly be trying to move our mind from delusion to reality. Like I said to Yitzi, yeah, Yitzi had some builders who did the behind him, yeah, and they messed something up. And he said it was kind of obvious, like when you walk into the room, you see it. Do you see it every time when you walk in?
Yeah, I mean, I see it now, but I love it. That
Yeah.
punchline now, I love it.
So it didn't go the way that Yitzi wanted it. There was like a little thing that was a little bit annoying, whatever. And I said to him, Lamaisa, you've now, I mean, these people have just given you, or Hashem has given you, a beautiful opportunity now. Every time you walk into your room, you can meditate on the fact that this world is not about you. And that it doesn't matter that things don't go the way you want them to go. It's irrelevant. Doesn't matter what you want. That's really called getting over your pleasure. That's really what it's about. That is what, when we talk about agenda, excuse me, when we talk about getting over your own personal agenda, what we're really saying is that the technical term for that is getting over your own oineg. A tzaddik, in the world of a tzaddik, his oineg is not a manda amma. It is not part of the equation. It is not part of the equation. So I don't want to get to whatever. Like there's a lot of things that people do in this world. Like imagine I'll say something that's not gonna what's the word
Be
threaten
popular?
threaten anyone too much. Is
Hmm.
imagine a guy buys himself a yacht, yeah, fancy $100 million yacht, yeah. The level that he could go, or probably maybe his wife would go to, in deciding the doorknobs, the carpets, the trims, the lighting, the everything. Imagine what that would entail, yeah? That is the exact opposite of what a tzaddik wants to be involved in. A tzaddik has absolutely no interest whatsoever in working things out in accordance with his own pleasure. It doesn't make a difference if the food's edible and it's going to take 2 minutes to heat it in the microwave. Just give it to me cold. I don't care. Just not. It's not part of the equation. That's the mindset of the tzaddik. It's just not part of the equation. That means that translates in the words that we're speaking here. That translates as not having an agenda. If you don't care about your own pleasure, then that means you're not going to have an agenda. That means you're going to be available. You're going to be available for the Ribbono Shel Olam. And that is called bittul. And there's madregas to bittul. There's many madregas to bittul. But this is what the Rebbe is talking about here, that the either soul wants dominance over the goof. Either soul cannot tolerate for different reasons, like we said, but neither soul can tolerate the other soul having any kind of dominion. For the reasons, as we said, I'll say one more time, that the animal soul is egotistical and it doesn't want to share power. The godly soul is agendaless, so it knows that it can't, it's not, it's incompatible with the Nefesh Bahamis. It's incompatible. Okay. So now we said that the primary place, the primary dwelling place of the godly soul is in the brain, and from there it goes down into the heart and affects the heart on the right side of the heart. The animal soul, its primary dwelling place is in the left side of the heart, yeah, where there's the blood, and it goes up into the brain. So it's the neshama, so to speak, the mechanics is from up down, and the nefesh abamis is from down up, meaning it's the difference between what we call intelligent emotions and whatever, hijacking the intellect or something like that, whatever you would call that. One moment. Um, oh, someone's got their hand raised. Issachar, you raise your hand? Or maybe it was me. I raised my hand.
No.
Oh, sorry, it was me. It was me. Sorry. It has like a thing on when I put my hand up, it registers that. Sorry. Okay. So the intelligent emotions mean that my emotions are a product of my intellect. They are guided by my intellect. They could be extremely vibrant and visceral and powerful and full of life, but they are guided by my intellect. The animal soul, on the other hand, his emotions guide his intellect. So his intellect is at the command of his emotions. It's the exact opposite. Yeah, you too.
Is that why you said melech is the opposite of kalem?
Exactly. Melech is moyach, leiv, koved, which is the system from the mind dominates over the heart, which then affects the behavior. To koved, leiv, melech, which is moyach, which is the opposite, and that means kolem, which is nichlam, which means to be embarrassed. It's embarrassing. To be dominated by your heart is embarrassing. It feels that way as well. You feel very out of control, like just like children are looking for Gadarim. They're looking for say Gadarim to find the boundaries. They
Yeah.
want borders. They need borders. Yeah. So too, if we're out of control emotionally, we feel very uneasy. It's not a natural state for a human being to be in. I mean, it is, but by default, but it's not meant to be. Okay, so now we're putting it together, and now this part of the Tanya basically, the Rebbe is going to basically kind of describe the dream of the Nefesh Elokis, and it's gonna we're after chapter 9 we go into chapter 10, and chapter 10 discusses the tzaddikim. So right now the Rebbe basically gives us this kind of poetic monologue that we'll try and get through the whole thing right now, this poetic monologue um, of the Luchat Chila experience of the Nefesh Elokis, the dream of the Nefesh Elokis. Okay, so let's go from Love. Hanal. Yeah, from the first one on the line is Hanal, about 10 lines down, page Yud Daled. She's labshu kulam be'ivrei guf, that all of the facets of the nefesh elokis will become enclosed in the limbs of the guf. The facets of the nefesh means the 10 powers of the soul, which is Chochmah Bina Das, Chesed Gvura Teres Malchus. Yeah, the 10 powers of the soul, and then the 3 garments of the soul, which is thought, speech, and action. So they want to become completely enclosed within the limbs of the body. The goof kulo male mehem levadam, and that the goof will be completely filled with them exclusively. V'lo yavo za b'soichem chas v'shalom, and there will not be a stranger, a foreigner who walks amongst them, meaning they get complete dominion. Dahainu, now he's going to tell us the dream. Tlas moichin, hochmas Hashem, binasoi, lisboinem, begudulas Hashem, ad ein chayke ve'ein soif. That number one is that the 3 intellectual faculties that are in the head should be filled with the Chabad of the Nefesh Elokis. That means Chochmas Hashem, which means intuiting and discovering godly ideas, ubinasoi, and godly bina is boinem begudulasoi, to then extrapolate and to meditate weiter on these ideas, asher ad ein chayke ve'ein soif, that have no end to them, ulohoilid mehem aidei hadas, and to give birth to them through das, hayira b'moichoi upachar Hashem beliboy, which leads to a intellectual fear in the mind, more of a perception, an awareness of God. That's called a yira b'moichoi. Upachar Hashem beliboy, that would be an actual visceral experience of fear in the heart, trepidation. I don't know what the word would be. He's basically giving us a chazara now of the whole system. Liyois nichsafa v'gam kausa nafshay, that he should start to be chalashing for the Rabbeinu Shalom, v'chasheka v'chafetza l'dabkaboy, that he will have a great tshuka and a chayfetz to be dovik in the Rabbeinu Shalom, ba'ein sof baruch b'chol leiv v'nefesh u'ma'oid, with all of his heart, with all of his nefesh, and with all of his ma'oid, which is the deepest level. From the depths of his heart, Shabachala Yamini, which we said is the right side of his heart, because it comes down into the right side of his heart. She had Toicho Ratsuf Ahava, and it will be like overflowing with Ahava, with love. Male V'gadosh, it will be Toicho Ratsuf means like pouring with love, and then Male v'gadush means it fills and overflows, that the heart becomes so giddy, dizzy with love for the Rabbeinu Shalom, that it pours over from the right side of the heart into the left side of the heart, that then crushes and dominates the sitra achra, Yesod Hamayim Haroim Sheba, from the foundation of water, evil water, which is the need for pleasure, which is like we said, the pleasure is really the code word for agenda, or agenda is like the code word for pleasure. So once this happens, where a person becomes so, like, in a sense, overwhelmed with his gratitude to the Ribono Shel Olam and his love for the Ribono Shel Olam, which happens. This is real. This isn't like this happens. That it pours over into his heart, into the left side of his heart, and it's mivato, the mayim aroim, the seat of pleasure. Sheataiva sheklipas noiga. That's the taiva of the klipas noiga, meaning that his own personal agenda becomes nullified. And it flips it over and transforms it from the desiring of love for things of this world, and that doesn't just mean pizza and chocolate, that or cocaine. Loves for the things of this world can be also spiritual loves, just selfish spiritual loves. And it will be transformed into a godly love, and that's what it means. The Mishnah says, with all your heart. It has two bases, but with both of your yetzes, meaning that in this case, this is a transformation of the nefesh habahamis. Remember, this is the dream of the nefesh lakis. The nefesh lakis is dreaming that the part of you that likes to go out and party will just become madly in love with God, and then that partying will be transformed into, a real avodah on Yom Kippur. V'hainu sheyale v'yavoy v'yagia l'madregas ava rabba. Again, he puts in code. This is, we say yale v'yavoy. So he brings the lashon here, which is obviously a hint to what happens on Rosh Chodesh and Chagim, where he says v'hainu sheyale v'yavoy v'yagia, that it will go up and it will come and it will arrive l'madregas ahava rabba. Ava Rabba, which I'm not going to explain that right now, but Ava Rabba is a very, very deep level of love that comes from above. It's not, you can't generate it yourself. It's not like a love that you generate yourself. It's a love that comes from above. Yeah, v'chibi yisera, and a deep love. Memedregas Ava Aza Karishbe Eish. He's like mentioning all the different kinds of loves, but we're going to get to that the way we're going probably another couple of years when we get to chapters 40 to 41 to 50, where we speak about all the divine loves, and he's speaking about a few of them here. So Ahava Aza Karishbe Eish is another kind of love which you can actually generate yourself. It's a very visceral, powerful love. It's more powerful in a sense than Ava Rabba, but it's more human as well. That's why it's more powerful. Vehi and the Keres because of Ava Batanugim. But this Ava Rabba, when it's coupled with the Ava Azaka Rishbe Eish, becomes what we call an Ava B'tanugim, Lis'anoig al Hashem Ein Olam Haba, and that becomes a pleasure of God, taking pleasure in your love for God. Now, pleasure and love are not synonymous. Yeah, this is a very deep idea. I don't know if I'll be able to give it over. Zot Hashem. When you're with your loved one, yeah, you're having pleasure. Let's talk about a little kid who you love. Yeah, you've got your 5-year-old little kid whose mum is cute, who you really genuinely love. Yeah, you got him on your leg or her on your leg, and you're having tremendous pleasure from them. Yeah. Now, what about if this person, Chas v'sholom, this person the father has to go to jail. Does he stop loving his child? Of course not. But that love now has become a pain, not a pleasure. The fact that he's in jail and he wants to be with his child is causing him pain. The love itself is not pleasurable. It's the closeness, it's the fulfillment of the love that is pleasurable. But the love itself is not a pleasure. The love is a love. It's two different things. So Kol Zman, the child is on the father's leg. He loves the child and he's having pleasure also. But the minute the father is taken away from the child and is not allowed to go to the child, is distanced from the child, he has the same love, but now there's no pleasure. In fact, there's the opposite. There's a frustration. So the pleasure of love comes from the fulfillment of the love, from the expression of the love. But the pleasure is a different thing. The pleasure comes from the expression of love, but the love itself is not a pleasure. Everyone's with me? Is that clear? You see, it's good that it's not so clear. It shouldn't be so clear. It shouldn't be so clear. We'll talk about this over the years. But that, I'll say one more time, that when you're in love with someone, that is not pleasurable. That's love. When you're with the person that you love, that's pleasurable. But the love itself is not a pleasure. The love is love. Pleasure is pleasure. This love, which is called Ahava B'Tanugim, a love of pleasure, is a love that is pleasurable. The actual love itself is a pleasure. Like imagine the tsar that a man would be if a guy, a guy, a bachelor in with no family or whatever, he goes to jail. It's not going to be very pleasant, yeah. It's not going to be very pleasant at all. But a guy with a loving family who's, whatever, think of the different level of tsar that it will be for him in jail than it would be for a guy who's just by himself in jail. It's a completely different level of tsar. Why? Because there's so much unfulfilled love. So love itself is just love. Pleasure is pleasure. They're two different things. The pleasure of love is when that love is expressed, but the love itself is not a pleasure.
Would the same thing apply when somebody passes away? That you still love that person, but because you can't be with them, there's a pain there?
Yeah, that's for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But this love is, we don't know this much, but we might have little glimpses of it. But this love is the actual experience of love, is the pleasure in itself. Like I said, it comes from above. It's a gift from above. The Rebbe talks about it in detail later on. It's a gift from above. So this is the dream of the Nefesh Lakis. You should be zeicher to this lisaneg. So it's called an Ava B'Tanugim. Lisaneg al Hashem Ein Olam Haba. That is like the experience of Olam Haba. That is experiencing your heaven in this world. This is what everyone's looking for. This is what we all want. והעונג הוא במוח חוכמה ושכל המסענג בהשכלת Hashem. And this oineg, someone says something? This oineg is in the moyach. It's b'moyach chochma v'seicha misaneg b'askalas Hashem v'diasoi k'vi asaga sichlei b'chachmasoi. It's a pleasure of hasaga. It's not the pleasure of struggling to be masig something. It's the same lahavdil elef alfei elafim havdalas. It's the pleasure of the news. Why is it called news?
Because it's new.
Yeah. There's a pleasure of discovering something new intellectually. That's why when you turn on the headlines and it hasn't refreshed from the last time you looked at it, there's like that little voice in your head that goes wah wah wah. Like no one does a chazara on the news. The pleasure of the news is a chochmadika pleasure. That's the treifkeit of one of the treifkeits of YouTube. Is it's the pleasure of new. That's exactly what TikTok and Instagram are based on. TikTok especially, and YouTube. What that Rahmanas thing on YouTube, the shorts. That's exactly YouTube shorts. That's the same taiva they're checking into. That taiva, the pleasure of a new hasaga, seeing something new. Again, not working hard to understand it, but just giluyim, so to speak, lahavdil. Okay, but the pleasure of the godly soul is when you experience new hasagas in Elakus, when you understand new ideas. Yeah, that's a tremendous pleasure. That's the pleasure of Chokhmah.
Number one
What is
is
that?
the gospel
Say that in English.
movie.
I'm just joking. I can't hear you. It's like your microphone's muffled. Okay, you're good.
Can you explain to me again on the YouTube Shorts? What's the issue with it? I mean,
I didn't
I'm
talk
not
about
following.
the issue. I said, wait. I didn't say what the issue is, like what the problem with it is.
I mean,
The
yeah.
driver of it is that your brain experiences something new, a new hasaga. Even if the hasaga is stupid, which it is by definition, basically, on TikTok, on YouTube Shorts, but it's a new hasaga, and as we all know, you can like all of a sudden go like that. You've been sitting there for an hour just taking in new hasagas because that's a pleasure. There's a deep pleasure in that. That's the
So,
Havdal, Elef Alpha Lavim Havdalas. That's a treif dugma of the pleasure of Olam Haba.
but why is it?
Imagine that in Olam Haba. Yitzi, imagine that in Olam Haba. Instead of going like that, flicking up with that, you're just sitting there and Hashem just reveals to you a new Hasaga in Elokus, a new one, and a new one, and a new one, and a new one. That's the
You
pleasure.
say,
Yeah.
you're saying that would be awesome. That would be great.
Yeah, mamash, amazing.
Why is it that I mean, when I slichos like this morning, we're going through the slichos. To me, that's new because even though it's last year, it's still new. So it's a new. Everyone is a new paragraph, a new this, a new that. But am I supposed to be like, wow, this is like a YouTube short? Like I'm excited by this new one. It's new. It's new. Because is that what I'm here? What at what point in this world am I? When you say new, that's for the good for the godly soul. What's an example of that? Learning Torah?
I mean, I feel like Bazooka de Zimmer every morning to me is new.
Your hodu every morning is new.
Yeah, like I mean, not every morning, but most of the time, I feel like I'm saying something fresh, even though I've said it thousands of times. It's
Oh my God.
it's more din on you than it is on what you're reading. How fresh are you? You know what I'm saying?
I'm just laughing. I'm just watching Michael cracking up. Okay, I think I have to learn more Tanya to get there. Okay, thank you. Let's keep learning.
Read more of the claiming sanity, but that's also helpful. Just remember the now, it's now, it's now, it's now, it's now, it's now, it's now. So it's like, see, you don't need if you're fresh every minute, then you can be looking at old things and it's still the pleasure of the chokhmah. Whereas if you're getting older and older, then you need to get involved in TikTok and YouTube shorts. You with me? But the point is, we got our little off topic. But the point is, there's a pleasure. That's the pleasure of Olam Haba. It's the pleasure of Gan Eden at Elyon, I think, which is this pleasure of Hasaga. But it's the pleasure of Chidush in Hasaga. Not the pleasure of Bina, of the avoider of Hasaga, but the pleasure of Chidush in Hasaga, which is Bechinas Chochma. So that's what he says here. how I understand it. V'hu b'chinas hamayim v'zera or zarua l'tzadik. Again, it's the idea of planting a seed. The or zarua l'tzadik. It sprout. That's chischadshus. That's new. That's this time of year. This is that happens every day. I mean, we have it on the Bechina of the year, and then we have it on the Bechina of the Chodesh. We have it on the Bechina of the week, of the day, even of the hour. There's all different kind of Kabbalistic stuff. It flips over to toiv, the bechina of mayim, which is a code word for the pleasures. Shebenefesh bahamis, that's in the animal soul. Shemehem ba'u taivas tanugolim hazeh metchila. That is where the tivers for the pleasures of this world come in the first place. U'k'moshe kasav be'etz chayim shanun perik gimel b'shem zoya. That in this case, the Ra actually transforms into utter goodness, into genuine elokus. It actually becomes, the Yetzer Hara becomes a Yetzer Tov. This is in the Tzaddik. Remember, the Rebbe is setting us up here now for chapter 10, which is going to be about the Tzaddikim. How does that happen? From the stripping away of the filthy garments from it, which are the pleasures of this world that is enclosed within. Yisachar, you okay? Okay, I hope it's just a bad microphone as opposed to like anything else. The definition of converting the nefesh abahamis into a nefesh agis, meaning the transformation of the Yetzer Hara into a Yetzer Tov, is called the stripping away of the filthy garments that surround the heart, that are called the pleasures of this world. Remember what we said about in the beginning of the class? It's the pleasures of this world. It's your pleasure that is stopping you from being a tzaddik. It is our addiction to pleasure. However that transpires, however that manifests, is our addiction to our own pleasure that defines us as a non-tzaddik. The more we are able to take our own pleasure less seriously, which means when you scratch your car, yeah, you smile and you go, that's okay, I'm fine, I'll be fine. I feel there's like something in me right now that's tense, but that's just illusional because it just doesn't matter. Just doesn't matter. I'm fine. My wife dropped a plate. It's also fine. Even you knock over a bottle of grape juice on Shabbos and it smashes, with the grape juice and the glass all mingled together, and it goes onto the rug a bit as well. Yeah, it's also fine. It's always fine. Unless you see your kid do something bad on Shabbos, then Machal Shabbos, that's not fine. Now you have to work out a clever way of, because that's not your agenda. The clean floor, yeah, and not spending more money on wine, that's your agenda. Yeah, Chilul Shabbos, that's the Rebbeinu Shalom's agenda. So getting over your pleasure doesn't mean that you don't take things seriously. It just means you don't take yourself seriously. There's a lot of things you're going to take very, very seriously, just not yourself. And that's called stripping away the filthy garments from the heart. And that goes for all the other midas shebelev. The entire heart should be absolutely and utterly dedicated to the Rebbeinu Shalom. And all of the ability to speak, and all of the thought, the ability to think that's in the brain. They should be filled exclusively with the Nefesh Elokis's ability to speak and to think. Shei machshavas Hashem v'soiraso, which means thinking about the Ribono Shel Olam and His Torah. Liyosichaso kol hayoim lo posik pumi megirsa, that you should always be talking Torah. You should constantly be talking about things with Toicha. Never let somebody drag you into stupid conversations. Never let that happen ever. I mean, not never, like, but you shouldn't let that happen generally. Don't let people drag you into silly conversations. Drag them into worthwhile conversations. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you have to be discussing, halachas. You could just talk about how wonderful the world is. Just talking about why is the sky blue? Isn't that a trip? That's already moving the conversation into a godly place, as opposed to talking about the dress that she wants to buy, or the new the new door that you want to get for your house. Lo posik pumi megirsa, where your mouth just doesn't stop speaking Torah. V'korach ha'maisa should be yadayim, and the ability to do that's in the hands, shar v'machivarav, and all of the rest of the 248 limbs, you b'maisa mitzvahs levado, they should be exclusively used for the maisa mitzvah. Shehu levush shlishi shel nefesh lakish, which is the third and final garment of the nefesh lakish, the koyach of doing. That is the dream of the Nefesh Lakis. He just did a whole chazar of everything we learned from there. That the Chabad should be full of thinking about God. That should be done with Bina and with Das, which should give birth to godly emotions. That should spill over into the left side of the heart. That should basically subjugate and convert the Nefesh Bahamis into a godly being. That means that the thoughts and the speech and the action will all be completely godly. Yeah, that is the dream of the Nefesh Lakis. That's her dream, mamash. And now listen, just the irony is, and you want to hear the dream of the Nefesh Bahamis? So that was over a page, and that was like nearly a page and a half, yeah? So the 2 lines he gives to the dream of the Nefesh Bahamis. This is the dream of the Nefesh Bahamis. Ach Nefesh Bahamis shemaklipa, but the Nefesh Bahamis and the Klipa, Ratzoina lahavcha mamish, its Ratzon is the exact opposite. Letoivus ha'adam, for the good of man, she is gabe aleh v'yinatzchen, that he should defeat it. Kamoshel hazoyin shebazoya kodesh, just like the moshel of the prostitute, the harlot, the zoina in the Zohar Kodesh. That's the agenda of the Nefesh Bahamis. But listen to what he just did, how clever that was. I can say such a thing about Alter Rebbe. That he says the agenda of the Nefesh Bahamis is the exact opposite of the Nefesh Lakis. He wants complete dominion over the body, yeah? That you're not thinking, speaking, and doing Torah mitzvahs, but you're thinking, speaking, and doing stuff of this world. But why? It's for your good, so that you can overcome him. He's trying to take your dark side, is sitting there trying to do as good a job as it can to get you to do the wrong thing. And he's underneath, he's sitting there going, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, please, please, please. He himself is Kadosh. He himself is not, I shouldn't have said that, he's not Kadosh, but the panemius of him, his panemius is Kadosh. Just like the king is about to give his, he wants to test the moral fiber of the prince, of his son. So what does he do? He finds a zoina, or not, he doesn't find a zoina actually, he finds one of his female ministers. And he says to her, listen, this is what we need to do. You need to do everything you can to tempt my son. And both the king and the Zoina don't want you to fail. And that's, I mean, it's Hashgacha now. That's really Yom Kippur, isn't it? That is Mamash Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is you're saying sorry to. You're not even just saying sorry to Hashem, you're kind of, in a sense, saying sorry to your Yetzer Hara. You're saying sorry to all of reality because you weren't meant to fail. We're not meant to fail. So we let down everything. We let down the king, but we even let down the Zionah. Everything is let down by our bad behavior. So Yom Kippur is a realignment with reality. It was all delusional. Everything that we did that was not in line with Ratzon Hashem is delusional, and we regret it, and it makes no sense. And from here on, we're going to be mamash givoldik b'zrat Hashem, and that's Perek 9 in the Tanya b'zrat Hashem. Okay, so have a good gebench gemach simatova. Any questions?
Well, what do you think about my question last week about the heart versus the brain?